King Kong and the Giant Anaconda, a legendary jungle battle. King Kong stood tall in the heart of Skull Island, his shadow stretching across the dense jungle as the morning sun pierced through the trees. The jungle was alive with sounds. But every creature grew silent when Kong roared, for they knew the king of the land was awake. Far away in the swampy rivers, the giant anaconda stirred, its massive coils hidden beneath dark waters, waiting for prey. The anaconda was older than many trees on the island, a silent hunter that had ruled the waters for centuries. Kong and the anaconda had never met, for one ruled the mountains and jungles, while the other ruled the rivers and swamps. But fate has a way of bringing two rulers together, especially when hunger and survival cross paths. A long drought began to dry up Skull Island, forcing animals to fight harder for food and water. The anaconda, starving for weeks, slithered out of its swamp in search of larger prey beyond the water. At the same time, Kong descended from the high cliffs to hunt near the riverbanks where fish and animals gathered. The first sign of danger was the sudden silence in the jungle. As birds scattered and monkeys hid in fear, Kong noticed broken trees along the riverbank, a sign that something massive had passed through. The anaconda tasted the air with its tongue, sensing the heat and power of a beast unlike any it had met before. Kong's chest rose and fell as he sniffed the swampy air, catching the scent of reptile musk. When their eyes met for the first time, the world seemed to freeze, two titans staring across a battlefield of mud and trees. Kong thumped his chest with thunderous force, declaring his dominance over all who challenged him. The anaconda raised its head high, its body coiled and ready, hissing a warning that echoed like wind through the reeds. The battle for Skull Island had begun, not just of strength but of willpower and survival. With a sudden strike, the anaconda lunged forward, jaws wide open to swallow Kong's arm. Kong leaped aside with surprising speed, grabbing a tree trunk and swinging it like a club. The impact shook the jungle, but the anaconda twisted around the tree, snapping it in half like straw. Kong roared in fury, his massive fists slamming into the snake's scales. But the coils only tightened. The anaconda wrapped around Kong's leg, pulling with the force of rivers, trying to drag him into the mud. Kong smashed his fists down again and again. But the snake's muscles were like iron chains. The ground trembled as they wrestled, roots tore from the earth, and water splashed high into the air. Kong grabbed a boulder the size of a hut and slammed it against the anaconda's body. The snake hissed in rage, its tail whipping through the trees, sending trunks crashing down. The jungle animals fled in terror, for never before had such a battle shaken their world. The anaconda struck again, wrapping its coils around Kong's chest and squeezing tighter. Kong's breath grew heavy, his ribs straining, his vision beginning to blur under the crushing grip. But the mighty ape refused to fall, roaring so loud that the mountains echoed in reply. Summoning his strength, Kong pried at the coils with his powerful arms, muscles bulging like boulders. The snake thrashed violently, smashing him into the ground, trying to break his bones. Kong dug his feet into the earth, gripping the snake's jaws with both hands. Inch by inch, he forced them open, his roar louder than the storm above. The anaconda hissed, twisting, trying to sink its fangs into his flesh. Kong lifted the snake's head and slammed it down onto the rocks, cracking the ground beneath them. The anaconda recoiled, its body writhing, its tail smashing trees like brittle sticks. Kong seized the moment, grabbing a fallen log and striking with all his might. The snake's scales shattered in places, blood staining the swampy ground. But the anaconda was far from defeated, and it wrapped around Kong once more, tighter than before. The jungle shook as they rolled together, half in water, half on land, locked in primal combat. Kong's strength met the snake's patience, two forces battling in endless fury. The anaconda's coils squeezed harder, and for a moment it seemed Kong would finally fall. But fire burned in his eyes, and he refused to surrender his throne. With one final roar, Kong ripped the coils apart, his muscles tearing under the strain. He lifted the snake high above his head, slamming it down with the force of a landslide. The anaconda hissed, thrashing. But Kong pounded his fists into its body without mercy. The ground cracked, water splashed, and the sky seemed to tremble with their fury. Kong grabbed a massive boulder, lifting it with both hands as if it weighed nothing. With a deafening roar, he smashed the rock onto the snake's skull. The anaconda went still, its body twitching once before falling silent. The swamp turned quiet, the jungle watching as the mighty serpent lay defeated. Kong stood over his fallen enemy, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. His fur was torn, his body scarred, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. He lifted his head to the sky and roared, the sound echoing across Skull Island. Every creature bowed in silence, knowing their king had once again proven his power. The rivers, once ruled by the anaconda, now belonged to Kong. The mountains, the swamps, the forests, all bowed to the might of one ruler. Legends spread through the island, whispered by the winds and carried by the rivers. The monkeys told stories of the roar that shook the skies. The birds repeated the tale of the coils that nearly crushed a king. The crocodiles hid deeper in the swamps, fearing the ape who crushed a serpent. And the trees bore scars of the battle, reminders of the clash of titans. Kong returned to his mountain, limping but unbroken, his eyes still burning with fire. He looked out over Skull Island, the home he had fought so hard to protect. Though scarred, he was proud, for he had faced death and triumphed. The anaconda's reign had ended, but its legend would never die. In the shadows of the jungle, whispers told of its strength, its patience, its silent hunts. But above all, the story of its defeat at Kong's hands became the greatest tale of all. Kong sat on his mountain throne, his body resting but his mind alert. For he knew the jungle was full of dangers yet to come. The island always tested its king, sending challengers from the depths. But Kong had proven he was more than muscle, he was willpower, courage, and unyielding spirit. The stars shone above Skull Island, and the winds carried the sound of Kong's breathing. The jungle animals slept, knowing their protector still lived. The rivers flowed again, calm after the storm, their ruler now gone. The swamp lay quiet, haunted by memories of the fallen serpent. And in the silence, the earth seemed to sigh, as if relieved the clash was finally over. But deep in the shadows, nature never truly rests, and new threats always rise. Yet no matter what came, Skull Island would forever remember the day. The day when King Kong and the giant anaconda fought for the crown of survival. The day when the jungle shook, rivers raged, and mountains trembled. The day when strength met patience, and fury met silence. And in the end, one roar silenced the hiss forever. Kong remained the king, his legend greater than before. The jungle bowed, the winds carried his name, and the stars watched in silence. King Kong had faced the deadliest hunter of the swamps and lived to roar again. And so, the tale of Kong and the anaconda was etched into the soul of Skull Island. A story of power, struggle, and the eternal fight for survival. A story told in roars, hisses, and the silence that follows battle. A story of a king who refused to fall. And thus, the legend of King Kong grew, forever tied to the serpent he defeated. The island would never forget, and neither would the stars above. For battles end, but legends live forever, and King Kong's legend would outlive them all.